So I want to have a little discussion about prayer. Prayer is a really interesting thing. It's been around for all of human history, as far as I know, at least all of recorded history. And it is this exercise or this practice of speaking with a divine entity, or in other times and places, multiple divine entities, and speaking to them with an expectation of something in return. And I want to talk about that part, that getting something in return part. Some people have an expectation that when they pray, that they will get whatever it is that they ask for. Sometimes people ask for things that are in direct conflict with someone else's agency. Like, for example, you know, try to think of some good examples. Let's say someone is praying for a job. Now, getting a job from an employer requires that an employer exercise their free agency to hire you. So, if there is a God in heaven, which I believe that there is, does the God that I believe in feel okay about forcing an employer somewhere to hire you if he doesn't want to or she doesn't want to? No, I don't think so. So sometimes the things that people ask for may not be answered because they're possibly in direct violation of someone else's agency. Now, could a loving God, a divine being, speak to someone's spirit and encourage them to do something? Would that be not contradicting their agency? No, I think they could do that. I don't know, but that seems reasonable to me. I believe that's something that God could and would do, and I believe has done. So I think you've got to be kind of careful about what you're praying for and what your expectations of prayer to be. What about, praying for, I don't know, the light to change? You're driving and you pray that the light will change a different color, and then it changes and you're like, oh my goodness, my prayer caused the light to change. This is kind of a tough one in two ways. For one, I think the light was going to change anyways, whether you prayed for it or not. So I don't know if God changed the light in that instance. The other one is that part of having free agency means living in an environment where the rules are consistent. This seems odd. Like, how is that related to free agency? But in order to be a free agent, you have to have some kind of reasonable expectation of the universe and the laws of the universe that you live in. Otherwise, it's not even. I mean, it's the ability to act and be acted upon, and you don't really have that ability if the laws of physics are constantly changing and someone's always moving the chess pieces around and messing with the 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 matter that you're working with. I think that actually interferes with agency, and so I don't know. I think anything's possible, but I'm a little bit more skeptical of instances where someone is upset at God because I say skeptical. I gotta word this carefully. I tend to not think that God's going to change the laws of physics or move a lot of matter around in order to answer your prayers. I just don't think that's going to happen. Is it possible? Sure. I think anything's possible. Sure. Do I think that's likely? No, I really don't think that's likely. So people might say, well, if you don't think God's going to force people to do things and he's not going to move matter around, what do you think the point of prayer is? Well, I think prayer has a lot of really fantastic points. I believe that we have a physical body and a brain. But I believe, it's my faith that we have inside of us, or somehow connecting. I don't know how it works, okay? I'm not going to pretend that I do. Somehow interacting with this physical body is something I call a spirit. And I don't know anything about a spirit, okay? I mean, like, I've never touched one or anything like that to my knowledge. It's really outside of my realm of experience and expertise. However, I believe that it exists, okay? And I believe that this spirit has the ability to communicate with God. And God has the ability to communicate with my spirit, or with me, I guess, because this is me and this is my body. And so in this circumstance, I believe that my spirit somehow has a connection with my mind, and to a large degree controls this body, through my mind. And so I think that God can influence my spirit by communicating with my spirit. And I think that God can communicate with other people's spirits as well. I don't think that God forces them to do anything, but I think that God can communicate with them, and then they can make the choice of whether or not to follow that guidance or communication. So prayer, I think, is a very spiritual thing, not a physical thing. I think it's something where you can have thoughts, and you can have guidance, you can have these sorts of things. But mostly, even beyond those things, I don't necessarily think that someone is going to be like constantly told, like, oh, you need to go to the store at this time so you can get this great deal and buy a great couch for your house. I just don't think that's really the point of prayer. In fact, the creator of the universe, honestly, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about that too much, but I just don't think that's really the point of prayer either. And then people might say, well, if you can't get benefits in your life from praying by saving money and all this like that, what's the point of prayer then? So I mentioned prayer is spiritual more than it's physical. And then I mentioned the communication part. But let's talk about the point of the communication. So there is something called spiritual enlightenment that a lot of people have experienced. It's been written down in texts, like scriptures, and people writing about it for as far back as you can go, recorded history, thousands of years, okay? Spiritual enlightenment is something that people in many religions seek after. And I believe that prayer is an activity that leads one to having spiritual enlightenment. Spiritual enlightenment, I think, is the height of the human experience. It is the greatest thing that one can experience in life. And prayer is the key to having it. Prayer is a huge exercise of faith, which, based on, again, records that are thousands of years old, faith is a fundamental portion of having spiritual enlightenment. And when someone prays, they are faithfully acknowledging the existence of a divine being and opening themselves up to that in a very meditative way, very deep, spiritual, and powerful way, if they're praying properly. Furthermore, I think prayer has some other functions. See, I don't think that God really gives us commandments for Him. I think God gives us commandments for us, to help us. I don't think that God's like, okay, do this because it's going to benefit me somehow, or I want people to stand around and talk about how awesome I am all the time. I don't think that's the way God works, personally, based on my experiences with God, my understanding of God. However, I think that God gives us commandments instead, to help us, because He loves us. Same way as the reason why I ask my kids to do things. I want them to, have good lives, and I don't want them to have bad lives. So I ask them to engage in certain activities. So what benefit does prayer give me? I found tremendous benefit from the way that I pray. When I pray, I spend a lot of time expressing gratitude. Well, guess what? Gratitude just happens to be one of the activities that they've studied and they found that is extremely highly correlated with happiness and life satisfaction. So expressing what you're thankful for. I also sit down and I ponder about my life, and I talk about the things that I'm having a hard time with. And sitting down and pondering and meditating and talking about the things that I'm having a hard time with is also found to be one of the best ways to solve your problems. Thinking about it, talking out loud about it. So those two things are huge. Prayer is tremendously helpful. And then I ask for things that I want. And there's been all this hype about, The Secret, blah, 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 and you say what you want out in the universe. And I don't know if there's anything to that or not. But they have found that for people who accomplish great things, they usually tend to think about it, talk about it, express it, verbalize it, and ask the universe for it or God for it or whatever frequently, and they're much more likely to attain it. So, prayer offers three fantastic things. And then the fourth one would be enlightenment. So not only does prayer greatly enhance your life, it also gives you the opportunity for spiritual enlightenment, which, in my opinion, is the greatest thing somebody can experience. So even if you are an atheist and you're like, there's no God, and I'm positive about that, I'm not really sure how you could be positive there's no God. But you really think there isn't. You read a lot of really persuasive things that really, made you believe that the whole earth and everything on it was just sort of this whatever. Anyway, I won't go into that right now. But anyway, if you're really persuaded of that, I think you ought to rethink prayer. Whether you believe in God or don't believe in God, prayer is extremely beneficial. And I hope that this post was beneficial for you too as well. Best of luck to you. Bye.